jumpsuit and a gutter punk kid with a neck tattoo. They're hooking up at the unisex bathroom. It was Brooklyn, it was Friday, it was love. Across the bar sat the hip-hop purists, arguing with the jazz obscurists. And in the corner were the terrified tourists. Brooklyn, Friday love. Angel choirs on the corner all night, sing Johnny Cash and Jackson 5. A little heaven you can stumble into. We got your invite tonight. Don't try to fight. Oh, it's just Brooklyn on a Friday. Don't try to fight. Oh, it's just Brooklyn on a Friday. They come from Mississippi and La La Land, and new wave hippies and the pop goth glam. It's just cause parents don't understand. It was Brooklyn, it was Friday, it was love. From this roof you can see the stars. We are the left bank dreamers and the avant-garde. I'll sing my borrowed song on your borrowed guitar. It was Brooklyn, it was Friday, it was love. Angel choirs on the midnight G train, sing Beastie Boys and Kurt Cobain. A revolution you can learn to dance to with a friendly face on the way. Don't try to fight. Oh, it's just Brooklyn on a Friday. Don't try to fight. Oh, it's just Brooklyn on a Friday. Bushwick Avenue, Bedford Avenue, Franklin Avenue. I'm on my way, where are you? Don't try to fight. Oh, it's just Brooklyn on a Friday. Don't try to fight. Oh, it's just Brooklyn on a Friday. Don't try to fight. Oh, it's just Brooklyn on a Friday. Don't try to
Herzlich willkommen zurück auf Schalke America. and Serie Sitdown. It's a Friday stream. I'm trying something different tonight. So hopefully all the streams go. I'm trying a different way other than the normal StreamYard. So we'll see how the multi-stream goes tonight. If it's successful or not, we'll find out and we can resolve it by Monday. But how is everyone doing tonight in honor of Schalke against Hamburg this weekend? Bringing back an old tradition of Angry Orchard getting ready. So the game's tomorrow. And we will be getting into that tonight for sure. Let's get into the rundown of what we're going to talk about tonight, because it's going to be first hour Schalke, second hour Serie. All right, so we're going to start off with conversation about return to the Bundesliga. We'll ask that question. Maybe do a couple Schalke memes. There's been a lot lately, but we'll just pick a couple of the funny ones I saw recently. Keenan Karaman, is a speech incoming? We'll get into why I think that. Fiago, do we all know Fiago, the online personality YouTuber? He talks some nonsense. We'll get into some of what he's talking about. Hoop Stevens, do we agree with him? Do we not agree with him? We'll talk about his comments, and then we'll get into a couple Discord questions and answers, and then get into Hamburg. Talk a little Hamburg pre-match press conference, and then get into the game predictions and stuff like that. So, and then real quick on the rundown for Serie, so you can stick around for that later. We'll talk about Pirlo as a coach. Andrea Pirlo, how's he doing? Is he getting a lot of shtick, unnecessary shtick? Look at some results in Europe, including some earnings. How did the boys do? Anyone seen Paul Lam? Anyone? Talk about some Bayern fans and their behavior online. Getting back to the betting scandal. It's kind of resurfaced lately, unfortunately. Talk coefficients. Speaking of sadly, we got to talk some coefficients and where Italian teams stand. And talk about some urban warfare, in particular, the Rome Derby. So that's in the second hour. The first hour, we're talking Schalke and the Bundesliga. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun night. Got some drinks, hanging out. Hopefully the multi-streaming works. But let's get into the talking conversations here. Let's talk about the return to the Bundesliga. This came from Reddit, and this came from a shout out to Royal Blue Gooner. I guess he's an Arsenal fan as well. He says, do you realistically see us make a return to the Bundesliga before the turn of the decade? He says, since we're probably not going to even finish in the top half of the table after the Regensburg game, I might be a bit gloomy, but stay with me. As much as I would love it, and as much as I am so skeptical, we're probably going to have to rebuild half the starting 11 this summer, with Silla and Bullet likely leaving. The summer after, it might be a Gruger and whoever else. Under these circumstances, it's not going to be easy to build anything. Manga's got one hell of a job on his hands. Yeah. So the question is, do you realistically see us making a return to the Bundesliga next year? Or within the next decade, I should say, before the turn of the decade. Discord question about next season. The Reddit question is about in this next decade. It's hard to say. There's many reasons to say yes and no, right? But if it was me, and it is me because I'm here talking, I'm going to say yes. Bear with me, right? I do think it's a yes. And it's hard to see that based on right now how the team is in the standings and how we just look dysfunctional over the last 5 to 7 years, since 2019, I guess. But there is some slight positives. We are still massively in debt. That is not, that's absolute fact. And it's hard to operate. We don't have many funds, right? But I wholeheartedly believe that we have the right pieces in place, though it may not seem like it as at the moment. While I don't agree with what the supervisory board and Manga are currently doing, if I look at it from a 10,000 foot view, 14,000 foot view, I think they're trying their best, right? They are reducing the debt limit. They brought in Manga, who's supposedly, really good with development of teams. Our friends at the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt podcast, they rave about him. He did hit a home run with Musa Silla. Was a flub on many others, but doesn't have much money. And now they bring in Frank Baumann from Werder Bremen. And again, what he's done with Bremen over the last 9 years, it's positive. They're a stable Bundesliga team now. And once, not so long ago, 2 years ago, they were in the Zweite Liga with us, and they went right back up. So, I think there's some positives there. I think there is a chance we can go up, but it's going to be a lot of good things to fall into place, right? I think what we have to do is obviously not overspend our budget, right? You got to get back to Bundesliga as soon as possible. So, I mean, rebuild the team. And I think it's possible. Is it possible next season? That's going to be a hard question. But, I imagine in the next decade, we're going to be able to get back into Bundesliga. I do know out there this weekend, we play a team who's thought the same thing. Hamburg, right? They got relegated, 2016? We're now 2025, and they're still in the Zweite Liga. So I understand. It's a tall ask. But I'm confident with the people we have in place that is doable. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are, because, I know the answers run the spectrum, right? I definitely know that. But, yeah, I'm curious how other people think, because I think it's doable in the next decade. We'll get to some of the Discord question later, which it narrows down that time frame. So, yes, I do think we're going to get to Bundesliga in the next decade. Now, the question from there is, do we become competitive in the next 10 years? Can we get back to Europe? Any kind of Europe? That is a more difficult question. I don't know that. I'm hoping the answer is yes. We got, Zaid Amusu Chabara and others in the Knappenspeeder with a lot of promise, right? Obviously, Max Kruger, Thailand Buda, if we can keep him. Felipe Sanchez. No, I'm just kidding about Felipe Sanchez. But there is a promise there. And so the hope is that we can keep some guys and eventually compete for Europe. And the new man, Frank Baumann, has spent money in the past. He spent, 14 million euros for Davy Klaassen and some other, we got Serge Gnabry and some other players to Werder Bremen. So he will spend money when necessary, but you got to get back to the Bundesliga first to do that. So let's see. I think Europe is a taller ask in the next decade. I am very, very hopeful. But certainly getting back to the Bundesliga in the next decade is absolutely doable. That's my thoughts. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on that. Let me know in the comments or in the chat. But you're really curious to hear what your thoughts on it, because it's an interesting question there. Over the next decade, you would think it's a yes, but then again, you look at what's going on with Hamburg and some other clubs. Kaiserslautern's been now for a long time too. It's like, can we get back? I don't know. And so, I'll put on some videos here, but yeah, it's an interesting question there. Oh, I see the chat isn't working on here, so I can shout out to these guys. So I see Anthony in the chat. It says buonasera. Let's see, Dominic in the house. Well. Just watching replay of Udinese Milan. Oh, right on. Amazing Vincent's in the house. Good to see you. I got this multi-stream going on, so I can't see the chat in there, but I can see you on my phone, so that's all that matters. So awesome to see you guys on tonight. But yeah, let's get to next topic in the Bundesliga, and let's talk a little memes. Got a couple memes. Got to poke fun at the bear, right? Because we're not doing so good right now at the moment. So Anthony says, I think Schalke will make it back, but it's going to start from the top with making good signings. Yeah, with a limited budget that Schalke has at the moment. Absolutely. 100% true there. Let's see, this is working there. Nah, that ain't working either. All right, whatever. All right, so this meme says, here's the first meme, and it says, I'm having a bad day. And then Schalke says, it's not bad enough. Let's make it even worse. James, thank you, sir. Glad to be back. But yeah, Schalke makes Schalke fans' lives more misery. I'm sure Anthony can attest to that with Milan, right? And Dominic too. Our next meme. This is just like how we all feel after watching Schalke, right? John Cena would turn heels like motherfuckers. All right, so Schalke says, "Hey babe, it's time for our weekly Schalke disaster class," and we as fans are like, "Yes, honey, of course, absolutely." Another one says, I saw a Schalke game win once, and the granddaughter's like, sure, grandma, let's get you to bed. Are we going to be at a point that it's going to be like that? It feels like it. Anthony says, trust me, it's been a miserable season watching Milan. Yeah. I got the double end of the stick here with Schalke and Milan. Jeez, at least Milan isn't getting relegated. It's close though, right? All right, moving on. So, talking about Keenan Karaman. Keenan Karaman's been known to make really great speeches, especially when he gets fuel for the fire, right? So when the opposition, whether it's the other coaches or players, start chirping, talking shit, he comes up with these passionate speeches before games. If you don't watch Schalke, or if you haven't seen his speeches, go look it up on YouTube. Schalke's website, YouTube has it. Really great videos. It inspires anybody to run through a wall. Well, he's got a little bit more fuel for the fire for this game. Big game against Hamburg coming up, top of the table. As I talked about on the podcast, Schalke do poor against the bottom of the table teams, and then against the first place teams this season, they've won most of those games, which is mind-boggling. So they're playing top of the table Hamburg again, and this time the coach decided to chirp. And so what he says, his name is Merlin Polson. He says, it's fun to win at Schalke. It's a big club in Germany, and that's why we're really looking forward to the game. We also know that a lot of Hamburg fans will be there again. That motivates us to give our all once more. So he's predicting a win. So I imagine Keenan Karaman's going to be paying attention to this, and then before the match, he'll have something. And I get to my predictions later, but I like if he can recreate some of that magic, the pre-match conversations, man, he's gonna have the team fired up at least to start the game. And so the question is, can he play well enough defensively to withstand the pressure that's gonna come from Hamburg? I'm ready. I'm all for it. So looking forward to that. See what happens. The game is the main game. It's on ESPN Plus finally, so we can watch it easier here in the States. So many times we had to resort to a shoddy German or Serbian or Russian stream, but this week we get ESPN Plus. So for those Serie A fans, we get to watch on Paramount Plus in the States. It's much easier time. But there was a time when we had to watch Serie A on a ghetto Rise stream from across the seas. So it's not too long ago removed. Usually Germany's ahead of this kind of stuff than Italy, but not in this sense. All right. So next topic for Schalke is Fiago. If you don't know Fiago, content creator on social media, YouTuber. He doesn't only talk about Bundesliga and Bundesliga teams. He talks about all European teams in general. Pretty entertaining stuff, I should say. But he had a comment that I thought was a little blasphemous as a Schalke supporter. So I'm curious what other people's thoughts are on that. Anthony says, Paramount Plus makes it easier to watch Serie A and Champions League. Yeah, Serie A and Champions League for sure, and a couple other leagues that they have in there. But yeah, those two for sure are the main reasons why I subscribe to Paramount Plus. But moving back to Thiago. I got Thiago Motta on my mind. Fiago had a tweet, says, if you're German and you want Dortmund to fail and not qualify for Europe this season, you're a fool. They're the flag carrier for German football right now, the best German team in European football this and last season, and this is at their worst. It's a bit embarrassing for all the other teams. That's his take. Do you agree with him? For the Schalke contingent, do you agree with this? Like, I'm curious. I can understand it. We've had this conversation also in Serie about the same thing. Like, do you support the Italian teams when they go to Champions League and Europa League and stuff like that? But this is Dortmund. This is Dortmund. That's like cheering for your arch. Oh, it is cheer for your arch rivals. And I don't know. I enjoyed seeing Barcelona win the first leg 4-0 and then win overall, and seeing them get kicked out. So Bayern, I can understand more to cheer for them, even though they're the evil umpire too. But yeah, Bayern. I mean Dortmund. Nah. I can't vouch for that. I can't support them in Europe. I can't. Coefficients be damned. Who cares? I'm curious what people think. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. But that's not for me. I'm sorry. It really isn't. Now, speaking of blasphemy, Hoop Stevens. Hoop Stevens is the name synonymous with Schalke fans. Former coach, saved our ass tons of times, right? Most recently, a couple years ago. He always has, he's aging now like fine wine. And he always has his opinions on everything and anything and everything related to Schalke. Well, this time he brought up Clemens Tony. Clemens Tony is obviously the man who's been exiled by Schalke fans and Schalke in general for the unnecessary comments and conducts he's had over the years while he was the head of the supervisory board. But he's back in our lives. Anthony says, I wouldn't consider Dortmund the bearer of German football, even though they got it to the Champions League final. I mean, I agree. I think, yes, it looks good for German football that they got as far as they did, but I mean, it's got to be Bayern, right? It's got to be Bayern. And I'm sure Leipzig are not even at that level either, right? Stuttgart are doing pretty well as well, but yeah, it's got to be Bayern. Unfortunately, that's it. So, I'm with that, Anthony. Camera setting the mood here, make it a little darker. Let me brighten the mood back up here. All right. Let's see. So, Hoop Stevens, right? He has some comments on Clemens Tony's. He says, I keep asking myself, why don't they bring Clemens Tony's back? He would help the club. Clemens Tony is a millionaire, billionaire, tons of money, loves the club. Has openly expressed many times that he's willing to help the club out, maybe not come back in a supervisory role, but wants to help contribute, financially to help the club get out of their debt and back to prominence once again. And Schalke fans are like, no, we're washing our hands clean from that. We are not going to entertain that. Get the hell away. Hoop says, he was and still is a true Schalke man through and through. Unfortunately, there are many who don't appreciate his work. From what I experienced back then, he wasn't often around the team. He left the team in peace. There were other people who meddled here and there. Clemens may not know much about football, but he has enough money, and that's something Schalke still needs. That came from Sport 1. I mean, yes, money. Many teams need money, need that funding, right? However, where's your line? Where do you draw the line in the sand? And I think someone who's racist, make stupid comments, who put the club in management hell and got Schalke to where they are right now because of his mismanagement. Why would we give him another chance? Yes, he's got the money. He would help us tremendously. However, do you want to dip your foot with the devil again? Would you sell your soul again for the devil just to get out of debt? I don't know. Eduardo! Yes, sir. We will be talking Inter in a little bit here, another hour or so, maybe a little less at the rate we're going. But good to see you, Eduardo. Yeah, Clemens Tony's... Nah, man. He's got the money. No doubt about it. He would... If he gave Schalke some money now, Schalke... There is a flip side to this, right? Schalke is massive debt. Can't buy any players or anything like that. He would immediately solve that. And would make Schalke and Manga able to build a team that's obviously not just free players, but players that are worthy of not only the second division of football, but could get you to the Bundesliga and stay in the Bundesliga. we won't have to worry about as much as debt, even though we got major debt under Tony's. COVID had a good portion of that as well, but he made some really poor judgments that saw the decline from Schalke. Schalke was a perennial top 3 team in the Bundesliga until 2015 or so, and then this decline just started happening. Maybe a little bit before that, maybe like 2013. But continued poor management by him, and spending 36 million euros on Brielle and Bolo. Like who the hell spends 36 million on Brielle and Bolo? So while he would help us tremendously get out and we were able to make some easier moves and make us a better challenge all the way around, I can't go with that. Now the flip side of that too, again, is 50+1 rule, right? Like currently, the way the structure is in Germany, the fans get a lot of say in this. Now, if you dismantle that and then you bring in an investor who has a lot of money, which you can't do right now, then yeah, you can come back. But then it ruins the tradition of German football. And where do you go? Right? We've seen many teams, Leipzig most notably, who've gone away with that, and everyone hates them for it. Now, are you willing to risk that to get out of debt? I don't know, but it's obviously a conversation you need to have, more so than the Tony's one. Tony's got a lot of money, would help a lot, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't jive with that. Now, if you're good with that, that's fine. I love to hear the viewpoints, right? I love the debate. I love to hear that. But yeah, I don't know if I'm with Clemens Tony's. So anyway. Let's get to Hamburg, because we have the Hamburg match coming up now. Tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. The Topspiel this weekend. 2 huge names in German football with a lot of history. Well, Schalke says, from Schalke's website, they said that it is a game of air duels, essentially, right? And so I want to look at the statistics before the game to see how we might match up against them. All right, so Schalke against Hamburg, air supremacy in both penalty areas. When Schalke face Hamburg, the statistics suggest that match won't end goalless. It's true. There hasn't been a goalless game between these two in mid to early 2000s. It's been a long time. Not least because of the header threat posed by both teams. And here we got some figures and stuff like that. All right, so the record between the two traditional clubs is exactly the same. 114 competitive matches. Schalke has won 44 times. Hamburg has won 44 times. And they drawn 26 times. This is also the case in the first leg of the season when Schalke equalized from 2-0 down and drew the game 2-2. All right, using their head. Schalke and Hamburg, when they play, the headers will be a major weapon. The visitors from Hamburg have already scored 17 goals off of headers this season. Schalke has scored 10. This puts both teams first and second in the league standings when it comes to goals from headers. David Selke alone, who's the current lead striker for them, their main striker is gone, Robert Glatzel, with an injury. But David Selke's come in and he's got 10 goals with a head this season. That's impressive. He's only played majority. I'd say 2/3 of the season, at least. Erwin, leave me alone. Schalke's got this new chat up in there. Let's see. It says, where are we at? Schalke isn't exactly a given, though. The Bundesliga proven striker has faced Schalke 13 times, has never found the net. I feel like that's a statistic you shouldn't have shared, right? Saying Selke's never scored against Schalke. That's going to have to change. That's going to change now, unfortunately. Watch. All right, let's see. David Selke is still worth watching. He leads the goal scoring with 19 goals this year. Yeah, he does. Musacilla was leading for the longest time, but he went out injured for 5 weeks or so. So he lost the lead there. But Hamburg has scored the most goals of any club with 63 goals, 8 more than second place Magdeburg. In addition to Selke, Hamburg also boasts the most reliable provider of assists, Jean-Luc Dompe, with 10 assists, and joint leader with Linton Mayen of Köln in assists. Schalke has no need to hide in attack. The duo of Kuno Karaman and Musa Silla have already scored 27 goals together, 14 for Silla, 13 for Karaman. All right, the ball, please. Both clubs will likely want to play possession in front of the opposition goal. Statistics say behind Magdeburg, 57% possession, Schalke at 54, Hamburg at 53. I would tend to think in this game that Schalke, as we've seen before when they played top spiel teams, they cede possession. And I don't know if I necessarily like that tactic, but if they win, hey, all for it. But yes, both teams are possessive. They love to play with the ball. But I very much see Schalke giving up possession to Hamburg. Now, not one, because Hamburg's going to take it from them. But two, seems Schalke just is content playing defensively, stay astute, and then try to hit him on the counterattack. That's what it seems like has been under Kees van Wonderen. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then one man's luck is another misfortune. Along with Elversberg, Magdeburg, and Ulm, Schalke have had the fewest hits of the post this season. The ball has only hit the post or crossbar 4 times. Hamburg, on the other hand, has had 15 goals hit the goal frame. I think the last time we played them, they had 5 or 6 to hit the frame. Talking about getting lucky. And it could have been, in the first half, I remember they hit 3 posts alone. It should have been 5-0. But always say 2-0. Second highest in the league behind Karlsruhe. So statistics are saying that it's a fairly even match, and Schalke's doing their best to make it tell you it's an even match. But you got Schalke, who's playing absolutely piss poor, confidence completely piss poor. The team just quit on them against top of the table, Hamburg, who just won a game. Oh, excuse me, they just lost a game. They lost to Braunschweig, also bottom of the table, and so they're pissed off of that game, and they're ready to scalp ahead and being in Schalke. Now, the one caveat again to this is their young manager decided to chirp a little bit, so that could make things interesting and possibly to our favor. I want to watch the press conference with Kees van Wonderen to see what he had to say. I think what the Hamburg manager said was after the press conference, or maybe he said it in his own press conference, so Kees wouldn't have known about this. But curious to see what kind of players come back from injury and whatnot. Unfortunately, Zaida Musa Shabada, the young promising player from the youth academy, he tore his ACL, and so he is out for the rest of the season, unfortunately. Unless by some miracle he has Zlatan Ibrahimovic blood in his veins and he recovers by the end of the season, but I don't see it, honestly. So, but let's get over to the press conference and see what Mr. Van Wonderen, aka Harry Potter, has to say on this. Subtitles will be on for those who don't speak German. Los geht's.
Hallo Peter.
Der 30. Spieltag steht an in der 2. Fußball-Bundesliga am Osterwochenende. Der Hamburger SV ist am Samstagabend hier um 20:30 Uhr in der Felddienst-Arena zu Gast. Herzlich willkommen heute am grünen Donnerstag zu unserer Pressekonferenz. Begrüße sehr herzlich alle Medienvertreter im Medienzentrum der Felddienst-Arena. Sage natürlich guten Tag unserem Cheftrainer Kees van Wonderen. Kees, herzlich willkommen. Und natürlich auch den vielen Mitgliedern und Fans des FC Schalke 04, die auch diese Pressekonferenz wie immer interessiert mitverfolgen werden. 2 Tage noch bis zum Spiel, Samstagabend hier bei uns in der Arena. Der Tabellenführer ist zu Gast. Was wird aus deiner Sicht, Kees, wichtig sein für diese Begegnung, für deine Mannschaft?
Ja, guten Mittag alle. Ja, ich glaube, das ist ein sehr tolles Spiel, um nach auszusehen. 2 sehr große Vereine, die sich treffen. Mit HSV jetzt in einer Position Tabellenführer. Sehr viel Qualität am Platz. Ja, wir bereiten uns vor.
Sorry about the
von
commercials
ein
there.
sehr starkes Spiel, eine starke Mannschaft, der auf uns zukommt. Aber wir freuen uns auch. Wir werden gefragt, in manchen Bereichen, um unser Bestes zu geben. Und wir wollen auch ein Signal geben nach unserem Spiel von Regensburg auch. So dafür die Möglichkeit am Samstag.
Zeit und Gelegenheit. Für eure Fragen bitte. Marcel Witte, Ruhr 24 beginnt heute.
Hallo Kees, Blick zunächst auf das Personal. Yannick Bachmann und Christopher Antwiat-Jay sind wieder ins Mannschaftstraining zurückgekehrt. Wie weit sind die beiden? Sind die jetzt auch schon Kandidaten für den Kader? Und generell gib uns gerne mal einen Überblick, wie es aussieht.
Ja, in generell sieht es gut aus. Wir haben noch ein paar Spiele mit kleinen Verletzungen, die wir noch de kommende Tage nochmal sehen müssen, ob das für das Wochenende reicht oder nicht. Christopher ist natürlich mit einer Muskelverletzung 2 Wochen nicht da gewesen, ist jetzt wieder teilintegriert in Mannschaft. Aber es sieht gut aus. Yannick hat komplett mittrainiert. Emil ist gut unterwegs. Elias Hamas war wieder am Trainingsplatz. So, da fehlen uns jetzt nicht so viele Spiele mehr. Nur die langfristigen Verletzungen sind noch nicht da, aber sonst wird es besser. Aber Spieler brauchen auch noch mehr Trainingseinheiten, vor sie wieder da sind, um Spiele zu machen.
Norbert Neubaum, Medienhaus Bauer.
I just realized I was on mute when I was talking there, but yeah, Antwi Ajay is the only guy who seems like he might be out for sure of the group. He said between him, I think Hamash has got a chance. Emil Hoyland's looking good. Bachman's improving as well. So maybe those 3 guys got a chance of playing. But Antwi Ajay, I'm not going to bet my life on that one. Let's see what else we got to say here.
Dann noch eine Nachfrage zu Elias Amash. Der musste gestern nach dem Training behandelt werden. Klang jetzt aber nicht so, als wenn es irgendwas Ernstes wäre.
Nee, Elias hat sich am Training mit seinem Enkel ein kleines Problem mit seinem Enkel gehabt. Es sieht nicht groß aus, aber das sind schon mit der wenigen Tage, die wir haben, müssen wir mal schauen, wie das dann läuft, ob es schafft oder nicht. Sonst seine alte Verletzung ist in Ordnung.
Robin Haag für die Funke Medien.
Das 0:2 in Regensburg am Sonntag war schon eine kleine Blamage für euch alle. Hat, glaube ich, gesessen, die Niederlage. Wirst du personelle Konsequenzen ziehen? Wird es einige Spieler geben, die vielleicht nicht mehr zur Startelf gehören? Können wir viele Startelf-Änderungen erwarten nach diesem sehr schlechten Spiel?
All right, so he's asking about the Regensburg game, and he's asking poor performances all around. Is anyone going to sit the game after such an embarrassment against Regensburg? And that's an understatement, the embarrassment part.
Ja, das sind 2 Sachen. De eine Sache ist, dass da Jungs auch jeden Tag kämpfen um seine Plätze. So, da gibt es dann einen Moment, wo du das auch umsetzen musst. Und du schaust auch nach der Gegner, was passt am besten für den Gegner und was ist die physische Belastung, Verfassung von jedem Spieler. Ist er in der Lage, um wieder so eine schwere, hohes Niveau Spiel zu spielen. So, wir nehmen das alle mit und mit der Maßnahme nehmen wir unsere Entscheidung, mit welcher Starting 11 wir anfangen.
Dear Dr. K, I used to think I was never meant to be beautiful.
More commercials
You
there.
work within my
look,
budget.
I see my chat now. Look at
Robin
that.
hat eine Nachfrage.
Ja, genau, daran anknüpfend, ich fand, was die Mentalität angeht, war es ja auch in Regensburg von einigen Spielern nicht gut. Negativ aufgefallen wird zum Beispiel Eamon Barkok, Armin Younes. Hast du speziell mit diesen Spielern darüber geredet, warum der Auftritt, warum die Körpersprache so negativ, so schlecht war?
Na, wir haben nach dem Spiel mit der Mannschaft darüber geredet, dass was passiert ist, dass es eine totale gemeinsame Verantwortlichkeit war und wir sind alle beteiligt.
It's funny, after the Regensburg match, he talked about how he essentially said he said so much, but he's like, I essentially did my job. All the players didn't do shit for the team. Now he's saying, look, we all did our part in the loss in Regensburg. We should all take responsibility for that. We were all involved together. So a change of tone there by Christian Wanderen compared to what it was last week.
Ich finde es nicht fair, um da einzelne Spieler rauszuholen. Das stimmt auch nicht. Wir sind eine Mannschaft, wir sind ein Verein. Jeder hat seine Verantwortlichkeit. Ich auch, das habe ich auch schon gesagt.
Hey, Kororo, I hope we don't see Gantenbeim next week because Gantenbeim on the right is not something I look forward to. As long as Thailand Bullet is healthy enough and he's got at least one leg, I want to see him play. But by no means do I ever want to see Gantenbeim back on the pitch unless it's absolutely necessary that he plays. But that's me, and I think you're in the same boat with your comment of I hope not.
Sagt und wir müssen das kritisch analysieren, das haben wir gemacht. Wir spielen bei einem großen Verein, so das sind Verantwortlichkeiten und das müssen wir umsetzen, das ist auch klar. Das ist der Weg, wie wir das analysiert haben und dann ist die Blick wieder auf HSV.
Dann machen wir es einmal in der Reihenfolge der Wortmeldung. Zunächst Christian Kitsch, Bild-Zeitung, anschließend nochmal Norbert Neubaum und Marcel Witte.
Ja, schönen guten Tag zusammen. Nach der Blamage jetzt von Regensburg, damit hatte natürlich erstmal im Vorfeld oder haben die wenigsten mitgerechnet. Jetzt rechnet keiner damit, dass ihr ausgerechnet gegen den Spitzenreiter HSV einen guten Auftritt hinlegt und wieder was gut macht. Warum klappt es aus deiner Sicht trotzdem am Samstag? Wie könnt ihr die Leute mitnehmen? Wie klappt es mit dem Sieg? Ist Hamburg vielleicht auch ein bisschen nervös, weil die in den letzten gefühlt 10 Jahren immer an den letzten Spieltagen auch sehr, sehr wenig Punkte geholt haben und auch noch sehr viel verspielt haben? Oder wie siehst du die Gesamtmengelage?
Referees. Yeah, reporters aren't holding back, are they? They're like, look, after the embarrassment against Regensburg, they used that word again. They're like, no one's giving you a damn chance that you're gonna beat top of the table Hamburg. How are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure that the players are ready for this game? That's a good question. I think the coach for Hamburg is going to help out tremendously with his comments. Bulletin board material there. Rookie mistake by him, but let's see what Kies has to say.
Guten Mittag, Christian. Wie gesagt, wir sind in einer Liga, die ist verrückt. Wir haben schon gesprochen über jeder schlagt jeder. Unsere Gedanken gehen auch noch an das Spiel in Hamburg, wo wir 2-0 hintergelegen haben im Halbzeit, weil wir uns zurückgekämpft haben. Ja, das war für mich der erste richtige Schritt von unserer Mannschaft zu sehen, dass wir in der Lage sind, ein sehr hohes Niveau zu holen miteinander. Wir waren fast noch dran, die Möglichkeit, 2-3 zu machen. Aber das zeigt schon, wo wir in der Lage sind. Dass es nicht immer gelingt oder immer umgesetzt wird in so ein Spiel, das ist auch klar. Aber ich glaube, wir haben die Qualitäten, wir haben alles, um ein sehr gutes Spiel zu machen und es der Spitzenführer sehr schwer zu machen. Und das ist unser Ziel für Samstag.
It's a lot of the same things that he said in the past, where if we play well, we can win. We have the quality. But he is right in the sense that he said, like, the league this year is crazy. Anybody could be anybody. We've seen it. I mean, we saw last week. Hamburg lost to second bottom of the table Braunschweig 4-2 at Hamburg. So it's very crazy this year. Anything is possible. But we've seen how Schalke played too. And that's the crazy part, is like, they played piss poor times, and that sometimes they look like they would go through walls, and other times they couldn't care less. Like last week, they looked like they couldn't care less. The one consistency has been their inconsistency, and so just on that logic alone, they're gonna go out and play really well against Hamburg. Believe it or not, it's crazy how inconsistent Schalke are, and the league is. The league is, it's just wonderful to watch because you never know who's gonna win. It's not as tight up top as it once was, right? But it's a crazy league. Anybody can be anybody, which any given week. That's the beauty of the second division.
Norbert, bitte.
Sie haben das hohe Niveau angesprochen, das die Mannschaft ja durchaus schon gezeigt hat. Gibt es denn eine Erklärung dafür, warum sie so selten dieses hohe Niveau abrufen kann? Natürlich kann man nicht jedes Spiel auf ganz hohem Niveau spielen, das ist schon klar. Aber ich sag mal, zwischen der Leistung von Regensburg erster Halbzeit und anderen schon gezeigten Vorstellungen, da liegen ja Welten zwischen. Und auffällig ist ja vor allem, dass es oft in der ersten Halbzeit so schlecht läuft und dass so blutleere Auftritte wie in Regensburg dann passieren. Gibt es da irgendeinen Ansatz, aus dem man lehren kann für die letzten Saisonspiele?
Nee, das sind Sachen, die auch in meinem Kopf sind. Wenn wir zum Beispiel das Hertha BSC-Spiel nehmen, dann spielen wir eine ordentliche erste Halbzeit, zweite Halbzeit war nicht gut. Fürth sind wir nicht gut angefangen.
What do you say?
Kommen auch 3. Sind wir zweite Halbzeit. Spiel das Hertha BSC-Spiel nehmen, dann spielen wir eine ordentliche erste Halbzeit, zweite Halbzeit war nicht gut.
He was talking about the Hertha Berlin match. I thought he was talking about the Regensburg match. He was like, "Oh, the second half, we have played good first half and not the good second half." I was like, "No, numbnuts, you were terrible first half. You're even worse second half." Hertha, yes, I agree with that comment. All right, anyway, I digress. Where does that play?
Fürth sind wir nicht gut angefangen. Kommen auch 3:1 hinterzulegen. Aber es sind auch Spiele wie Münster, wie Fürth und wie Ulm, dass wir noch am Ende des Spiels, auch wenn wir nicht gut spielen, dass sie noch die Ehrgeist und Mentalität haben, um uns noch zurückzukämpfen. Auch mit den Spielern, die nicht anfangen, aber die in das Spiel reinkommen. So, das sind Sachen, das ist schwer zu analysieren. Was ist die Ursache, dass wir die Spiele, die wir zum Beispiel vor dem Winter gemacht haben, wo wir ein höheres Niveau geholt haben, dass wir das nicht in zweiter Jahrgang, dass wir das nicht oft am Platz zeigen können. Das ist schade, weil die Qualität sitzt schon in die Spieler.
He's reaching a bit because he's saying like, oh, we've had good performances before. We've had games where we played really well and for halves. But it's like, yeah, you've played also piss poor in halves as well. He did make a point that like, yeah, we haven't been our best at several games, like Ulm, Munster, Hertha, yet they found a way to win the game. That's true. And he also said that like at the end of the first half of the season, they went on the 5-game tear, which Schalke's getting ready to go up against the five of the best teams in the league. And they got, 8 points? 8 points out of the 5 games, which nobody thought they were going to get 3 points. So they showed really good quality then. But the thing you need to understand, Keys, is that at least we're playing okay at the time. Right now, we are so vulnerable, so fragile mentally. This is going back to what we've been the recurring problem for Schalke, is that mentally they're fragile. We've seen many teams do this in many leagues, right? Mentally fragile, and then as soon as a bit of pushback or negativity happens against them, they completely unravel. And that mentality has come back again. It seemed like we got rid of it in the first half of the season. At the end, and maybe a little bit here at the beginning of the Rückrunde, but presently it looks like they are absolutely fragile. And so I am not as confident as he is. Maybe that's his job to say that, right?
Marcel, bitte.
Let me guess. You're thinking about going to therapy. And as a therapist myself, of course I'm going to say
yes, I do want to go to therapy just because of Schalke.
But first,
and these commercials.
Du sagst es gerade, dass du es nicht fair findest, einzelne Spieler herauszuheben. Jetzt wirkte Justin Hekerin in Regensburg auch verunsichert, bekommt aber auch viel von den Fans ab im Stadion, aber auch zum Beispiel in sozialen Netzwerken. Wie geht er damit um? Also, wie nimmst du ihn in dieser Woche wahr? Und muss man sich vielleicht dann auch als Trainer schützend davor stellen?
About Justin Hekerin.
Ja, auch da haben wir über gesprochen. Wie soll ich das erklären? Justin habe ich dieses Jahr kennengelernt als ein sehr junger, aber talentierter Torwart mit sehr großem Potenzial. Dann haben wir uns entschieden, um einen Torwart mit sehr viel Erfahrung zu holen, weil Torben Hoffmann zu Braunschweig ist gewechselt. Und da kam ein Moment, wo wir uns entschieden haben, um Loris Karius seine
So I like how he's saying we got Torben Hoffmann, even though that happened before him. Good company man there.
Erste Platz zu geben hier in unserer Mannschaft. So, Justin musste einen Schritt zurück machen. Das macht etwas mit einem Spieler. Ja, und das ist auch von der Karriere von einem Spieler, was auch manchmal passiert. Dann verletzt sich Karius, Loris und Justin bekommt seinen Platz im Tor wieder zurück. Aber da ist natürlich etwas passiert und da gibt es auch etwas von Druck, das ist logisch. Aber ich glaube, dass wir miteinander, so der Verein total, und da meine ich auch mit der Fans, dass, weil Justin ist ein potenziell sehr guter Torwart und er ist von Schalke, so wir müssen ihn nicht wegpfeifen oder wegschmeißen. Er muss lernen von diesem Schritt in seine Karriere, wo es vielleicht fürs erste Mal in seinem Leben richtig mit Druck zu machen hat oder mit einer Situation, was vielleicht nicht so einfach ist, aber an die
Okay. A lot of going back and forth here with Kies van Wonderen. One, he starts off with saying like, you know, how when he first joined Schalke, Justin Heckeren's very young, but he's super talented with a lot of potential, right? And I thought he was going to go into like why he made the decision, how the keeper was feeling, but no, he just essentially gave us a narration of what just happened this season so far that we already knew about, right? Oh, Justin Heck, we had Hoffman, but he left us because he wanted more playing time. Heckeren was our guy. We brought in Karius to be a number one, and naturally Justin had to step back, and then he got injured. Karius did, and now he had to come back in. We already know that, man. Like, tell us something we don't know. Tell us what the conversations had. Like, he's a young keeper. He did kind of do that at the end where he's like, look, Schalke fans should not whistle at him or be telling him to go because he's our keeper. You got to pump him up. You can't really like knock him down, especially how fragile and young he is. And he finally did say like, look, this is like his first like wall that he's had to face in his career, and he's got to fight through it, right? He needs to fight through it because all goalkeepers, all players, it's going to happen in their career where they're a starter one minute, next minute they're not. And you're going to have some down times, some yips, and you got to fight through that. And Heckeren does have to fight through that. Unfortunately, Schalke has a history of creating unnecessary goalie fights or player situations where a battle is unnecessary. In most situations, yes, a battle for positions is good because it makes all the players better. But Schalke is a mentally fragile club, and it doesn't work. It was evident in 2020-21 when they did it with Fairman and they brought in Alexander Nubel. And Fairman saw the youngster come in and they said he might take his job one day. And he started playing with the Yips and then lost his job. And then Nubel came in and Nubel sucked. And then had to bring Fairman back to, crawl back with their tail between their legs with Fairman. Eventually he left. And he's still bitter about all that. So it never works, and Schalke has a damn stupid history about this, and we recorded again why we had to go out and get Karius if we felt so good. 3 managers felt so good about Justin Heckeren, right? Karel Gerards, Jakob Fimpel, Kies van Wonderen. Why are you going to get another goalkeeper? We were playing decent enough. We had that great run at the end of the first half of the season. That gauntlet, the last 5 games where we got the 8 points. And then they all fucked that up by bringing up a goalkeeper. They should have known that this guy was young and maybe incapable of handling that. I don't know if the subject was broached or not. But, again, Schalke sticking their foot in their mouth and it comes out their ass. So, I don't know. Keith is not saying much right now, but...
Andererseits ist es auch ganz gut, weil das kann ihm am Ende ein besserer Spieler machen. Aber dann muss durch diese Phase hin. Und darin müssen wir ihn miteinander komplett unterstützen. Und das mache ich auch. Hallo Peter. Nee, das sind Sachen, die auch in meinem Kopf sind. Dann haben wir fürs erste Mal...
I lost where it was in the video. I must hit some button and went back to the beginning. I'm not going to even try to look for where it is again. I've seen enough of the press conference. I saw some of the text afterwards, so doesn't say much in this press conference. It's a rather long one for a pre-match press conference. A lot of questions about, can you overcome the stupidity that was Regensburg? I don't know. But let's see. Let's go on to the predictions of the game. The game is tomorrow afternoon. It's the Top Spiel, 2:30 p.m. Let's see. Polson says, at the start of the week, we analyzed and reviewed the match against Braunschweig, but then we quickly shifted our focus completely to the upcoming match and have trained intensively. Predicted lineups. Do we have predicted lineups? No, we do not. Statistics for the game. Nothing here. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. No doubt about it. Do I think we can win? Crazily enough, as crazy as the season has been, I think we can win. I also think we can lose 6-0. And if we lose 6-0, you're going to say Auf Wiedersehen the Kies van Wanderen after our last game for sure. There's immense pressure on Kies van Wanderen to get this game right. And getting right doesn't necessarily mean a win. Getting right means playing competently and looking okay out there, looking good out there. A draw would be sufficient to keep his job. An embarrassing loss would not. After what happened to Regensburg, especially with new man Baumann on the team. Now, obviously, he doesn't join officially till June 1st, but you could easily see a situation where they can him and bring in Jakob Fimpel or Tim Hooglin, who's already on the bench there, who many Schalke faithful love. So, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game. They have some big key playmakers, obviously. Looking at their lineup, let me see if I can pull up the lineup from last week from Hamburg, because it's going to be a similar lineup to what they used this week. Here's a Braunschweig match here. Lineups. All right, so they had in goal, they had Hoyer Fernandez, really good goalkeeper. Mikkel Brenches, Schonlau, Elfaldi, Hefty. I almost said this, Pobega. Scared the hell out of me. Karabac. Richter is really good. Richter was pretty good in the first game. Youngster right here is really, really good. And obviously David Selke. David Selke comes in for Robert Glatzel. Everyone thought Hamburg was done for the season. All he did is step up and bang 19 goals. Unreal comeback season for David Selke. Imagine if Robert Glatzel come back this season, that's guaranteed. Now, if they end up getting promoted and they keep Selke and Glatzel, they could do some things in the Bundesliga, but they're not there yet. On the bench, have anybody of worthy? Farai is a really good playmaker. Meffert as well as good. Glatzel's on the bench. Oh, he must have just came back. That ain't good. Koningsdorfer torched us in the first game. Yeah, they got a really good team. And they lost to Braunschweig. Freaking Teppelman scored a goal. Maximilian Felipe scored a goal. Should be interesting. Trent says both teams lost last week. Both teams lost embarrassingly. But you imagine the first place team who's trying to finally get promoted after 9 years are going to come back strong. And Schalke don't look like they compete. However, as said in the chat, it's all about the mindsets of the teams and the players tomorrow. And I think the one caveat I think that gives me the advantage, gives me the leg up on this, is the manager for Hamburg, who says, "Oh, we love winning at Schalke. We love winning on the road there. It's a fun place. It's a big club. We love beating that club." That's bulletin board material. We know in sports, we've seen it many times where you put bulletin board material and it motivates a team. So I think that comment came at the right time for Schalke, because as bad as everyone plays, they're going to see that comment and they're going to play their best game in a while. You imagine Keenan Carman's going to have some great speech before the game, probably see some feistiness on the field by the players. And I am going to go out on a limb and say Schalke will win. Am I crazy? Am I crazy to think that? I think Schalke is going to win. I do. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you think Schalke are going to win. I might be crazy. I might be crazy. Alright, well, that is it for Schalke Talk tonight. It's been about an hour. Been about an hour since we went live. So, games tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be back with a podcast on Monday. Hopefully it's a victory Monday, not a misery Monday like last week. Jack should be back from his trip. But yeah, podcast will be Monday, but stay tuned on our socials to let you know for sure what day it is going to be. But we're planning for Monday night at this point. So, yeah. All right, let's get over to Serie A. Switching chats here. What's up, Mr. Quattara? Please don't live my... Let's set the mood here for a little Serie A here. Get some green and reds in here. Get a little azzurri colors. And shift our way to Serie A. Because it's time for a little Serie A here. Got a lot of people in the chat ready for that. Let me go quickly back to the rundown of what I'm going to talk about for Serie A tonight, in case you missed it in the intro. All right, we're going to talk a little Pirlo. Andrea Pirlo, is he a good catch? Don't leave yet. I am not leaving yet. We just finished Schalke. We're going to talk Serie A now, so don't worry there, Schalke. We're gonna be here for another hour. But Andrea Pirlo, is he overrated as a coach? Does he perform poorly? Talk about that. Some comments from there. Look at the European results. Obviously, had a lot of. We had a lot of. We saw the games that happened this weekend. Obviously, the Rome derby ended 1-1. Most of us thought I think Rome was going to win that game, and that game ended in a draw. But yeah, Milan won 4-0, and Inter won as well, 3-1. Dad ragazzi. Oh, Dominic, are you drinking too? Autocorrect, huh? Sorry, but yeah, but go back to the rundown here. Talk about Paul Lam. See how he's doing. See how the Bayern fans are doing. Get back to the betting scandal, unfortunately. Coefficients and then urban warfare, which relates to the Derby della Capitale. So, got some things to talk about tonight. Let's start off with Andrea Pirlo. All right, so this comes from Reddit, and it comes from Bucktooth MC. What a name! What a name! And he says, "Is Pirlo actually a poor manager? In my opinion, Pirlo's management career doesn't get the credit it deserves. He earned 78 points in his only season with Juventus, a mark the club hasn't reached since." Interesting. Fati slipped into decline and eventual relegation after he had them sitting in 7th, and Sampdoria is now battling relegation following his departure. He may not be Pep, but to me it seems that he's a competent manager who brings an entertaining and dynamic style of football to his teams. Thoughts? Especially from the people who watch Sampdoria tenure closer. Andrea Pirlo, huh? That's a good question. Yeah, you know, I thought Juventus were foolish for getting rid of Pirlo. They had Allegri, and they were so adamant they wanted to play a different style of football. And then they played that football with any kind of new style of play, especially when it's completely opposite of what you played previously. It's going to take time, and unfortunately, they don't have patience at Juventus, right? Anthony, I see you there. So yeah, it's like you want to change, you want to play entertaining football, but you don't have the patience to deal with it. You expect your team, who's been a defensive juggernaut, right, with the BBC, to completely shift gears and play an attacking style of football like that. I don't know, I couldn't hear the snap. There we go. just like that. Like, no. Maybe if you have Antonio Conte, maybe if you have Pep Guardiola, it's possible. You pick a young manager, young in the sense of maybe age overall, but also in experience, and you think you're not going to give him a chance, that's messed up. Right? Thiago Motta just saw that, right? So I thought he did well with Juventus. I thought Juventus completely changed their style of play under Andrea Pirlo. Maybe Ronaldo had something to do with that. I don't know. Right? But they're saying like they didn't reach the points that he achieved since then. This is amazing, but not surprising. Juventus has been like kind of like this free fall since then. So yeah, he had okay stints in Turkey and Sampdoria and other places. I don't think he's a poor manager. I think he had made some poor choices in management, but he's clearly got a skill set. He's got a vision of how he wants to play. Obviously, as a midfield maestro like he was, he's got to see the game a different way, right? And he wants to play a certain way. And I think that style has merit. But he didn't get a fair shake. Hasn't got a fair shake and hasn't made good decisions. I think if he chooses his next place wisely, he could do well. But he was just in Turkey and they did okay. Right? But yeah, I don't think he's a poor manager. I don't think he's a great manager. I think he's a decent manager. He needs time to develop. So we'll see. But how do you guys feel about Andrea Pirlo? Let me know in the chat. Dominic says Juve got buyer's remorse on Sadi. Yeah. Too attacking. That's not very electric. Yeah. They were so distraught by Andrea Pirlo and then Sadi that they're like, no, we need to have Allegri back. We can't do this anymore. Like, no more of this experiment. And now they're like, they don't know what to do. They're like, no, you know what? They had like buyer's remorse again after they went all defensive. It's like, well, we'll get Thiago Motta. He's good defensively, but they're better at attacking. And then they're like, no, we're not patient still. We're still not patient. And they got rid of him. Now they got Tudor, who's completely defensive. I don't know. Anthony says, I would consider Pirlo a mid-tier coach so far overall. Yeah, I agree. Mostly because he wasn't given a time at Juventus and decided to coach Sampdoria at a low point in their history. Yeah. Chikna says, I think Pirlo does not have the character to manage big teams. Right now, I agree. But I think he also needs a team, and that's hard, right? Because big teams don't usually have patience, right? If he had gone to maybe Lazio, maybe Napoli before they had their success, but if you go to one of the big three, right? Inter, Milan, Juve, historically, I'm talking about not this year, historically, they don't have patience. And so he wouldn't get in time to develop. I think he needs to develop in the mid-level teams, or even just above that, and then slowly work his way up to the top tier. Kind of similar to how Roberto De Zerbi has done, even though he's getting a lot of pushback right now in Marseille. But yeah, I think he's a mid-tier manager. He needs time to get that pedigree of becoming a top team manager. Lazio, Fiorentina, Bologna, maybe those teams. Yeah, I agree, 100%. If he goes to somewhere like Lazio, Fiorentina, Bologna, maybe he can prove himself there and then move up, right? We're seeing Vincenzo Italiano kind of doing that right now, where started out of Fiorentina, then he's gone to Bologna, who's a Champions League team. He's proven his worth there, right? He's shut me up because I thought he was going to fail there. I'm glad he didn't. So the next natural step for Vincenzo Italiano is probably like a Juventus job, right? Or something to that end. Palladino as well. He started out with Monza. Now he's doing really well at Fiorentina. So he's due for that next upgrade there too, right? Maybe he goes to one of the Roman clubs, you know? Who knows? Or Bologna follows. Maybe just follows Vincenzo Italiano wherever he goes, right? But those are just a couple examples right there. So yeah, no, I don't think he's a poor manager, and I don't think he's a great manager, Andrea Pirlo. I think he's a mid-level manager, mid-tier manager, kind of like Anthony is saying, and needs some time to develop. But he needs to be smarter about what team he picks. He needs to pick a team that's decent enough, well known enough, but also a team that has management that has patient enough for him. And maybe, as said in the comments, like maybe don't go to a top team where they have no patience at all. So, all right, moving on next. Let's look at some of the European results, and there weren't many Italian teams to talk about in Europe, but let's get into it and see how it goes. All right, some of the other results. Dortmund beat Barcelona, but Barcelona won the war. Aston Villa as well. They won the battle, but Paris won the war. Inter and Bayern. Inter won. I mean, true the day, but moving on to the next game. Obviously, Lautaro Martinez goal. I thought he had an assist, but he didn't. But 2 goals in that game. Lautaro and Pavard within minutes of each other. Made it 2-0 there after Harry Kane's opener. And then Eric Dyer drew one back. The 2 English boys get the goals for Bayern Munich, ironically. Now, that's all she wrote. Interesting end of the game. I thought the tactics by Inzaghi at the end of the game, after they went up 2-1 in the game, I thought the tactics were completely wrong by Inzaghi. I rarely say that about Inzaghi, but he allowed... I understand. He wants to make sure they clean up defensively and make sure they don't allow anything. They were playing so well prior to the lead, prior to the 2 goals, and they completely changed it. And that's like managers who are unsure of themselves do a lot. Yes, Inter have a great defense, but like I hate when teams do this, when they're doing something that works, they get the lead, and then they change it completely. It's like, if it was like the last 5 minutes of the game, I get it. But you went up with 30 minutes to go. Like, that's way too much time to do that to Bayern. Bayern, who's got a really talented team with speedy wingers, great players. And they allowed him to come back in, right? Eric Dyer scored a goal, and then they came close a couple times. But unfortunately for Bayern, fortunately for Inter, Jan Sommer has owned Bayern since 2014, right? He owns them at Inter. He owned them at Gladbach when he was there. One of the few teams to beat Bayern Munich when Bayern Munich was, top of Europe. He's one of the few teams whose teams have beat Bayern during that time. So he's owned them historically. Now, what kind of sweet irony is that Benjamin Pavard, former Bayern player, scores his first goal against Bayern. The goal that essentially seals the win. So, yeah, great victory there for them. Looking back at the chat, Anthony says, apparently Ancelotti is being linked for a possible return to Milan or Roma since he's most likely leaving Madrid after the Copa del Rey. That is correct. He has left Real Madrid after the Copa del Rey. He will be done. He will not play the last game of the season with them. Mathematically, they cannot overtake Barcelona, so he's like, I'm out. And a guy who's won how many Champions League now? 5 Champions Leagues? How many league titles has he won in different countries? All the top European places? He's deserved it. Do I think he's going to go to Milan or Roma? I do not. I think all indications are that he's just going to retire from club football, and if he does manage again, it's going to be for the Azzurri. But everything I've heard about Carlo Ancelotti, both from the Real Madrid sector and the Italian sector, is that he's going to retire from club football after the season with Real Madrid. He wanted to go out winning the Champions League, but obviously they lost to Arsenal, and that ain't going to happen. But he's got nothing else to prove. Yeah, he could go to Milan, but he could ruin his career, or ruin his legacy in Milan. We can't take away what he did in Milan previously, but second stints rarely work. And then going to Roma is possible, right? But how much does he have left in the tank, right? After what he's done at Bayern, or what he's done everywhere he's gone, right? Bayern, obviously Real Madrid, PSG, Milan, everywhere he's gone, he's won. So like, I don't see the motivation for him to manage again in terms of club football. So I don't think he's going to come to Italy. I don't. I'd be very surprised, pleasantly surprised, obviously, if he does it. But yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. Dominic says Tudor has been a midfield triggered. Tudor has a midfield triggered recovery instead of Mota's all-out press. Yeah, it's probably better. Tudor's style of managing team is better than better suited for Juventus than Motta's was. So Juve had glimpses of brilliance under Motta, moments of stupidity as well, and disbelief because how they did some of the stuff or didn't do some of the stuff they should have done. They missed basic football. However, like they look at times real brilliant, right? But just guys didn't perform as like they should have. I pull in for Tudor, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Sheik says, do you think Como has the resources to establish themselves among the big teams in the near future? I don't know if they'll be allowed to spend big in the market because of FFP rules. I talked about this a couple streams ago with Como, right? Nico Schira has come out and said that they're planning to spend 80 to 100 million euros. I do think they have the resources. They definitely have the resources, right? They got the star power, they got the money to finance that. But you got to face 9 teams ahead of you. 9 teams to overthrow a good amount of them, at least a handful of them, to get anywhere near in the table where you think you're going to be. I forgot I was on this, but look at this. They got to go past Inter, Napoli, Atalanta, Juve, Bologna, Lazio, Roma, Fiorentina, and Milan are all teams that have to beat presently, right? That's not even including Torino and Udinese and Genoa. Those can all be had, but getting in the mix of the top 9, that's easier said than done. And spending 100 million euros will help you, but the rate at the cost of the players these days, it's going to be hard to spend that much and get a lot back, right? You may get, based on the market, if you're going for really top talented players, you're going to get maybe 3 good players for that price, right? Or like what I suggested last time is like, instead of doing that, you don't necessarily get the best of the best talented, but you get the guys with the potential who cost a little bit less or a little bit undervalued, and you could probably buy a good, similar to what Milan did when they spent 200 million back in the day, and when they brought in Bonucci. Not saying do that, but you can spend 100 million euros and get half of a certain 11, or some good depth players, some players that cost in the 10 to 15 million euro range. I can get a lot of players for that money and build a good, strong prediction there. So a good team that can battle for Europe. Top 4, probably not. Europa League, unlikely. It's probably a conference league at best. Maybe Europa League if the other teams in the top 9 are struggling. They'll certainly compete, and financial fair play could come into it. I'm curious how that will all work. But if they're financially stable, they could probably get away with it one season, right? As long as they don't do this continuously, I think that's when it nips them in the bud. If you do it just a one-off, and if they get some European, if they make it to Europe somehow because of the moves they make, they can offset some of those costs, and it'll help them, I think, in the bid. So I think, yes, I think Como can absolutely spend the money. I don't know if they're going to make top or make European play, but it's going to be Fabregas is going to have to do some really great stuff. I'm glad they're sticking with him because he's got a lot of potential, but we'll see. Let's see. Anthony says Inter showed a lot of grinta to beat Bayern. Yeah, especially after you heard Paul Lam comments, and I'll get to those in a second. Let's see. I agree with the Carlo. Don't expect him to come back to Italy unless it's with the Azzurri. Yep. Bismarck said, "What's your top 4 prediction?" My top 4, man, that's easier now than it was before. I think, right? I think Inter will be top 4 in Napoli. No, I think the top 3 are a lock. Well, not even so much, right? I think it comes down to these 5 teams, right? I think Lazio is. They've proven that they're not quite there, right? I was pulling for Lazio and Bologna, but it didn't seem like Lazio was ready for Bologna. Has been more than willing to fight, it seems like, this year. So it's come down to these three teams for the last 2 spots. I think Atalanta they have been a little bit inconsistent lately, right? But they're still so talented. And I think now that they're focusing solely on Serie A, as we saw last weekend, they can get back into the groove of things. So I think Atalanta make top 4. Then it comes down to Juventus and Bologna, and that is the question right now, right? How do each of them how that each of them finished the season. Looking, I kind of want to look at the recent form of these clubs, because you can see kind of what kind of form they've been in, right? And so you look at what Juventus has done lately, right? They beat Lecce last week, they drew Roma, beat Genoa, lost to Fiorentina, lost to Atalanta, right? So lost 2 out of the last 5 games. You look at Bologna, on the other hand. They lost to Atalanta. Like, again, I told you how Atalanta's a good team. They drew Napoli, they beat Empoli, they beat Venezia, they beat Lazio big, and they beat Hellas. I am kind of going with the trend here because I am unsure about Tudor. I think he's a good coach for them. Will they play too defensive? Can the star players come out? Yildiz obviously looked great in the last game. He's a great player, and you got Vlahovic and company, but Vincenzo Italiano's team seems like they can't be denied at the moment. They've come back like gangbusters. Juventus has too, but I'm gonna instead of waffling here, I'm gonna go Bologna make top 4 over Juventus. I don't know. Am I crazy? What do you guys have Bologna in the top 4 or Juventus? Or do you have somebody else in there? Is Atalanta making yours? But I think Juve fall to 5th place, Bologna finish 4th. That's my prediction. Who will finish higher between Lazio and Roma? Dominic, you're having a terrible time with this autospell, aren't you? Autocorrect. Roma and Lazio. That's a good question. I trust Roma more now than Lazio. But now that Lazio are out of Europe, I've been very impressed with Baroni this season, what he's done with Lazio. I was pegging Lazio to be top 4, them and Bologna this year. Or them and Fiorentina, excuse me. Roma, I love the work Ranieri's done with Roma thus far, but I'm going to go Lazio. I think Lazio finished just higher than Roma. Am I crazy? What do you guys think? Dominic says, if Como spend it like Rocco Commisso, look out. Yeah, I think that you have to, if you're going to look at 2 models, or any models from the top 20 in Serie A, this is the whole league, who do you look at? You don't want to look at the big boys, right? I think you look at Rocco Commisso, Fiorentina. What Rocco Commisso's done has been magnificent. What Fiorentina was before he was there to where they are now, they've been slowly trajectorying upwards. Every year has gone a little bit better. Next year they're a viable threat for the top 4. It's a slow process. He hasn't wasted all his money. He's been financially sound in his moves. Moise Kean, obviously, it's great moves that they've made both for the coaches, but also the players. And then Atalanta. Atalanta's obviously the darling and obviously the one that everyone looks at with their scouting and stuff like that. But those are the 2 teams you're going to look at if you want to build the way your team is going to grow. It's what Atalanta do and what Rocco Commisso and Fiorentina are doing. And I think if Como copies anybody, it's those 2 teams. They should be. Obviously, not spending 80 to 100 million euros, not going to do that, but it gets you in the conversation. And sometimes you have to be in the conversation, and then you can do what you want to do, right? Especially if you have the means. Sheik says, Inter, Napoli, Atalanta, and Juve. Then Roma, Lazio, Bologna, Fiorentina. That's his top 8. Wow, you have Bologna dropping below Roma and Lazio. Interesting. Hey, it's possible. It's possible. Very possible. All right. Let's get back to Europe. That was the only team involved in terms of Champions League. Obviously, Real Madrid lost to Arsenal. Going over to Europa League, Lazio, they stumbled mightily against Bodo Glimt in the first game, 2-0, and then it came back, had a chance, but Bodo Glimt, even with a man down, they got a way to draw the game and then win it in penalties. So Bodo Glimt move on, which is it sucks for the Azzurri coefficient. But Lazio's out. And so while they were waffling in Serie A, I think now they can focus all their eggs in one basket. But yeah, it's unfortunate there, and Bilbao moved on. Tottenham, I don't know how they moved on, and then obviously Lyon moved on as well. Oh, excuse me, United won. What? Did I miss that? I guess I missed it. Wow. Okay. Wow. Anyway, but Bodo Glimt the story here too, right? But yeah, Lazio are out. Moving over to Europa League, Fiorentina move on against Celje. Next round they will play Real Betis. That should be an interesting game there. So I asked this question during the Schalke segment, but like Fiorentina are a team that like outside of Juventus, not many people have too many qualms about, and so like you as a Serie A fan, do you support Fiorentina or you say to hell with them? I know Juventus fans are probably saying to hell with them, but I think the rest of us are, yeah, whatever, let's support them. Doesn't help the coefficients either way, but you'd like to see the Italian team do well. I know I sound like a hypocrite based on what I said about the Dortmund thing, but I stand firm on that. So yeah, Fiorentina's still doing their things. It's nice to see that transition from Vincenzo Italiano to Roberto Palladino didn't really affect them in Europe in the sense that they're still successful. They're now going back to the semifinals after back-to-back finals in the Conference League. If they can get past Betis, which is not an easy task, you're likely looking at Chelsea or Djurgården. You never know these days with Djurgården, or Chelsea, I mean. But kind of I want to see. I forgot. I haven't followed Betis in the last couple months. See how they're doing this season. They're in a Conference League spot again, so they're right where they should be, right? Yeah, it'll be an interesting game. It'll be a difficult game for sure. First game is at Betis in Sevilla. It's not going to be easy. If they get a score draw away, not that it matters really, the away rule, but get a score draw away, show that they can score, even a win. I mean, a win obviously is ideal, but if they get a score draw, that'd be sitting pretty going back to the back to Firenze. Let's see. Anthony says it's tough to say between Juve and Bologna who will finish in top 4, but I will give the slight edge to Bologna because of the work Italiano has done this season. Good job by Fiorentina to get to semifinals of the Conference League, and it's indifferent to Fiorentina because they're not a rival in the league, and like Inter is correct. I think the winner of Betis and Fiorentina will beat Chelsea in the final. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the winner of Betis and Fiorentina take it all. Especially if it's Fiorentina, that'd be great to see. Just because they've been at the finals the last 2 years and just came so close. It'd be nice to see them win. At least they get to Europa League next year, which would be awesome. Awesome to see for them, right? Because they've been trying to get there so hard. And that's the next logical step for them is to get to Europa League and then after that Champions League. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay, so based on European play, how did the money shake out from that, right? Obviously, Champions League money is going to be much greater than Europa League or Conference League. But how did it shake out, right? You had 5 Italian teams in Champions League, 2 in Europa League, and 1 in Conference League. So how did it all shake out? IFTV posted the statistics here, at least from this year, and says the prize money spread around. 118 million went to Inter. Obviously, they went very far last year. And then 67 for Atalanta, 66 for Juve, 61 for Milan, and 35 for Bologna. Go over to Europa League, Lazio and Roma 24 and 20 respectively, and then Fiorentina got 14 million euros. So the question on many Interisti fans is like, will they actually buy players with it? That's a good question. I don't know if they're going to be... Unlike, they've been anti-Juve, and I laugh at saying that because they hate Juve. So Juve, we saw this past season, they spent money out the ass, right? They spent on 150 million euros on players. And Inter, what they spent like $5? It seemed like, at least. Inter are going to be more frugal. Marotta is not going to go and spend all this money. He's not going to spend 150 million euros on players. He's going to be smart about it. If he's going to buy players, he's going to get rid of some players too. It's a Marotta league. He knows what he's doing. He is the pinnacle when it comes to all the transfer stuff. So, will they buy some players with it? Maybe. I don't think they're gonna go out and buy like, back in the day when we saw Inter buying a Zidane or not Zidane, Ronaldo, or going out and spending money on players. They're not gonna do that. They might find where their needs are, and kind of fix those. But like, I don't see them spending lavishly. They're not going to be Juventus. Juventus financial fair play may get involved with them, but they're not going to spend as much as Juve or Milan or any other teams. I think they're going to spend what they need, and that's not going to be much, right? Marotta knows what he's doing. And he's just going to get by, and Interisi going to have to face the fact that you're going to have to trust him. Because one guy managing, maybe before he was there, you don't trust what they do in the back room there, but you got to trust Marotta. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for forever, and he's the best at what he does. And so they're going to take those wins and save them for a rainy day, right? And spend only what they need. So I don't see them spending a whole boatload of money. I really don't. But no, what do you guys think? You guys going to spend money on that? Alright, let's see. What else? What else we got? Alright. I'd like to file a missing persons report. Has anyone seen Paul Lam? Anybody? Anybody seen Paul Lam? I mean, 2 weeks ago they played Bayern, or before the Bayern Inter game. He's chirping. Oh, the Italian teams, they can't play modern football. They can't beat the modern teams like Bayern and blah, 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 blah. Inter win the first leg. Inter should have won the second leg, but they allowed Bayern back into the game, and it was a draw. And Inter move on. And nobody's seen Paul Lam since. Foolish comments by Paul Lam. I mean, I think at this point, if you're associated with any team, you just stop talking. Don't talk smack about the opposition, because not that Inter needed any bulletin board material, but they got it, right? A great like Paul Lam. Paul Lam is an all-time great for sure, but like, I'm sorry, man, he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Italy can't compete with the modern game. I mean, like, hello, like look at the Atalantas, look at Fiorentina, look at who else? There's a lot of examples of Italians playing a wonderful game, not the old Catenaccio. I don't think Paul Lam has watched an Italian game since the 2006 World Cup when the Azzurri beat his team. I think he's just bitter about that, and so, he's used to that Catenaccio style. And he's like, I'm gonna stop watching Azzurri after this, or any Italian football, and that's what he's got in his mind. It's the only thing that explains to me why he thought that. Did he not see Atalanta nearly go to the semifinals of the Champions League? What was 2020 or 2021? Did he not see that? Did he not see Inter in the finals last year? Like, where's he been, man? So no one's seen Paul Lam. So I hope he's doing okay. I really do. I like Paul Lam, but man, he was out of it with that comment, out of pocket with that comment for sure. So, oh my God. Anthony says, Dominic says, so who sold Marotta on the project and brought him to Inter? I don't know, that's good. Zanetti? I mean, look, say what you want. Zanetti's a good looking guy. He comes up to you, asks you a favor, you're like, okay, all right, whatever, I'll do anything. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah, whoever convinced Marotta to come to Inter deserves a key to the city and, oodles of money. That is a real genius right there. Whoever that was. I'm sure Nima Tavali could tell you who convinced him to come to Inter. Maybe it was Nima, right? But yeah, that was the brilliant move right there. Marotta will figure this shit out for Inter. Absolutely. That's what Lam gets for opening his mouth, hiding in the bushes somewhere, right? In Germany. Plenty of examples in the last 5 years of Italian clubs making deep runs in Europe. Yeah. I mean, we just talked about Fiorentina making the finals 2 years in a row in Conference League. Roma winning Conference League, went to the Europa League finals twice. I mean, plenty of examples, right? So, yeah. And even before that, right? So, Paul Lam. What are you going to do? But let's move on from Paul Lam, but stay with Bayern. Let's stay with the Bayern theme. Bayern fans are disgusting. This is coming from the Inter people on Serie's Reddit. This is from Whole Brian 1068. It says, I sneaked into their social medias, excuse me, such as Reddit and Instagram, and I am so disgusted by it. Our squad cost a total of quarter of what Bayern spent on theirs, and they call us the most horrible names, saying that we don't play football, that we are the worst Atletico and worse than Atletico, and that they hope to see us lose against Barca. They insulted Acerbi, Pavard, called a non-existent handball from Lautaro. I am so pissed by this. I hope that the fans inside of Italy were more fair and sportsmanlike, but apparently they're not. They're used to see their team dominate. What a joke of a league. And win a lot in Europe. And thanks to the absurd money that they have, they should be ashamed of themselves. Yeah. Now, I will say this. This kind of fan behavior is fairly consistent in Europe in general. Just any league, pick any league, and there are going to be teams that have this. Plenty of examples in Serie A. Hell, we have the freaking league we got to worry about because, they decide to post. They say no to racism, and then they post posters of monkeys all around and FIGC, man. But I digress. Yeah, I think Bayern fans are bitter. They, like the Barcelona fans, I think they knew that the Inter were a better team, especially defensively, right? They're a team that's capable. And they're also the unknown. People are scared of the unknown, and so they're scared of the unknown. They react as their fans did, right? We've seen this in Italy many times, and so, yeah, some of the commentary I've seen as well, not been really good. Barca fans too, right? But again, it's every fan base, every league. Pretty much anybody who supports a team can say, even their own fan base probably said it, right? Like, Dominic, Anthony, and I, we could tell you, Milan fans certainly have. There's some bad elk in that fan base, right? I can tell you some Schalke fans that are some as well, right? But yeah, Bayern are not without. Juve not without, Inter not without. So it's unfortunate that people have to get to those lengths to make themselves feel better, right? Oh man. All right, what else we got here? Let's see what else is on the docket. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Paul, okay, all right, did that. All right, let's get to Anthony Lapopolo. We know Anthony Lapopolo, huh? You should know him. He wrote an article for Calcio Square. Niccolò Fagioli and the hypocrisy of betting scandals. So scandals are back in our lives, and some of the people who are heavily involved are linked again. Fagioli, Tonali, amongst others. But some new names have surfaced. Weston McKennie being one of them. All right, current Juventus player. Let's see what Anthony has to say. The Italian midfielder is one of 13 players involved in an ongoing betting scandal, but he's also a victim. All right. Let's see. Nearly all of Niccolò Fagioli's texts have become public. Most alarming are the ones he received from a criminal moneylender who promised to end his career if he didn't pay up. Not good things, right? I'll make you quit. I'll put you to work as a bricklayer. I'll even take your pen so you can't sign your contracts. I read a message obtained by the Italian newspaper La Corriere della Sera, excuse me. Fagioli's betting history is nothing new. He already served a 7-month ban for placing bets on football matches and using illegal websites to wager on them. But prosecutors named him again last week after busting a jewelry store in Milan and seizing $1.5 million in illegal payments. The store allegedly processed debt payments as luxury watch purchases, but watches never actually changed hands. Okay. All this while Fagioli drowned in debt. He owed $1.5 million and was facing interest charges of $140,000 according to La Gazzetta dello Sport. He was so deep into the network that he became an unwitting recruiter. He sought the help of friends and family to recover losses that exceeded his salary. He was 19 when it started and in survival mode. Sandro Tonali fell into a similar hole in the names of past and current Juventus players like Angel Di Maria, Weston McKennie, and Mattia Perin have also emerged. These players are just pawns in a greater illegal network that preys on people with gambling addictions. Tonali and Fagioli in particular have already paid the price privately and publicly. They both sought therapy and have seem to come through the toughest period of their lives as better people and players. Tonali is scoring again for Newcastle and recently won the League Cup. Fagioli has a new lease of life from Fiorentina. Yet they're the ones who seem to suffer the most, not the criminal betting organizers who have no recognizable faces. Tonali and Fagioli headline the investigation, even if they're no longer really the protagonists in it. They're forced to relive the nightmare that nearly cost them everything. These boys are like children to me, and they cannot be lambs to the slaughter as they were becoming. It is not a civil way in a civil country, FIGC President Gabriele Gravina said. Take him with a grain of salt. He's a piece of shit in himself. He says, with Tonali and Fagioli initially suspended in October 2023, in Italy there exists a disease. Gambling addiction is a social plague, not just one of Italian football. There are 5.1 million people who play and 1.5 million who are suffering. It is unsurprising that some of them are also involved in football. It's not just unsurprising, it's entirely expected. How could betting not be embedded itself deeply in the ecosystem when halftime ads in Italian television feature the latest odds and the very newspapers that report on betting crimes push lines to readers? Yeah, remember when Milan had BetWin? I mean, how many teams now have some kind of betting site on their as a sponsor? How could players not get sucked into the underworld when clubs accept sponsorships from betting companies and push speculative fan tokens on crypto exchanges? I always thought about that, like all these teams who've had these betting companies as main sponsors, especially on the kit, right front and center. I fare to wager heavily that they are giving a strong hand, saying, you know, use our site, show people that you use our site, and then it becomes addicting, right? So they're part of this problem too. Maybe you just don't allow betting companies to be sponsors anymore. Back to the article. Serie used to ban these companies from sponsoring teams. At a time when players are battling severe addictions and falling prey to bad actors, the league and itself and team are all too happy to ride the financial windfall that comes for them. Yeah. See? FIGC will try to tell you that they're doing everything in their power to make sure this league is the best in the best standing possible. Yet they have no stance on betting in football, right? They don't give a damn. It used to be, they used to never allow betting sponsors happen. And then, you know, Milan and some of the other teams kind of kick things off, and now it seems to be everywhere. It's super prevalent at the moment. Lost of spine in that. Racism. We don't even touch racism because FIGC are completely inept in that department. And then, like, anything and everything that's negative, they are completely shits when it comes to that because they have no concept of how to deal with it. Their biggest worry is piracy. Piracy in football. Get the fuck out of here. I mean, Gravina, the whole lot in FIGC need to fucking go. This is the problem with Serie. It is the FIGC and what they've allowed to happen to the league, like allowing the betting to come into the league. It's been so stupid what's been going on with the FIGC. I mean, and nobody. I understand it's their own thing, and you know, the country can't get involved, but like somebody somewhere has to stand up, or the teams have got to stand up. And at times we've seen some of the teams trying to stand up for themselves, but like ultimately you fall under the FIGC and league rules, and like if they're not going to help you out, how are you going to? There's only so much you can do. But I digress. Where was I? Let's see. I got next one. Last statement. The good thing is that the investigators continue to uncover these illegal networks, but players like Tonali and Fagioli are victims too. It's hard to get rid of the problem when the league sees the most problematic players as a solution. So, the hypocrisy of betting scandals. This is me reading it for the first time, and so I wasn't sure where Anthony LaPapolo was going with this, but I kind of understand. Obviously, you heard my rant. Florenzi's in the betting scandal too, is he? Wow. Yeah, not surprising. Nothing like finding ways to pay out their gambling debts to own their bookies. Yeah. Can Tonali be sentenced to 8 more years at Milan, please? That's a scare straight program right there. Yeah. We have some nut jobs in the fan base at Milan, including the Zakura Sud. Yeah, an example of the last fight. Yeah. So, I mean, to Anthony LaPapolo's point, hypocrisy of betting scandals is hypocrisy. Now, part of it is like, you know, you can go back as far changing gears in terms of sports, but you look at baseball and Pete Rose even, right? Like, should he have been, sanctioned as hard as he was, like, granted, he did it. He bet against his own team. Like, if betting is so illegal in sport, but it isn't in life, like, if your country allows it, like, that's a tough line, right? You're allowed to bet outside of work, but in work you can't. But if you're involved with a company or a team, you just can't bet in general. Like, make it legal for everybody, or make it legal for everybody. Now, people have addictions; it's a true problem, and some people need to find ways to get resolve that. Like Fagioli and Tonali have again therapy, right? It's a real thing. Addiction is a serious thing, and it's not just with gambling; it's all sorts of things, right? And so they need help. Lots of people and players need help. But I can't stand is the league trying to say, yeah, we're with the players, this and that, when the league does absolute shit when it comes to trying to help people. They try to say the right things, but their words don't back up their actions whatsoever. And then they have a history of just being a pot calling kettle black, essentially. When they won't stand up for real issues, even like betting. I don't know. So, like, part of it is, like, these players need help. And they gotta do away with all this betting. But a lot of it, the problems, again, come from the FIGC. And someone needs to step up and start being more stringent on what they allow players and people to do in the league. Until that happens, it's not going to change. And I don't see this changing. Like the racism in Serie A, I don't see it changing anytime soon. Does anybody feel differently? I'd love to hear somebody who sees a glimmer of hope, a silver line with all this, because I'm willing to see it, but I don't. Anthony says the stadium situation as well. Yeah, 100%. Marketing of the league, poorly fans across a lot of legit criticism of FIG. Yeah. Pete Rose didn't use steroids like Barry Bonds, Mark McGuire, and a cheat on the baseball for sure. He would not have been having. I also feel strongly about Barry Bonds. I actually feel he got shafted a little bit too, but we're not getting on to baseball tonight. I brought it up. My fault. But, no. I think it's not going to change in Serie A anytime soon with anything that's newsworthy, unfortunately. So, what are you going to do? All right. Two more things before we get out of here tonight. I lost track of time. We'll get the 2-hour mark, I think. All right. Back to Reddit. This comes from Mercurial Saliva. Says Italy are mathematically out of the race for an extra Champions League spot, as they can't overtake Spain anymore. Only the top 4 from Serie A will enter the Champions League. All right, so football rankings says Italy are mathematically out. Essentially what they was just said in the tweet. So Inter, Napoli, Atalanta, and Juventus or Bologna make the top 4 in Champions League. Not surprised. I think was it last year or year before? We were just so good in Europe. 7 teams getting to at least the semifinals or something to that effect, or quarterfinals. Unreal year that was. Coefficients obviously were the best in Europe at that time. Well, we've come back more to life recently. We're still pretty good overall, but in terms of coefficient, obviously, Betis going far. Real Madrid making the quarterfinals. There's so many teams in Italy. Obviously, Bologna stunk it up. Milan stunk it up. Juve stunk it up. Atalanta stunk it up. And Inter's been the only one really doing well. They're still moving on, but Lazio as well. Fiorentina and Inter are the only ones that remain. And not surprising. At least they still got the top 4, right? I remember the days when there was only 3 teams allowed, and that's a far cry from that. But I think having 5 teams in, at least this past year, was a stretch. Bologna, though they deserved it, under what they did under Thiago Motta and Serie A the year before, they weren't ready for it. And we wouldn't see until the last game of the Champions League where they finally looked like they were ready to compete at that level. Playing at that level takes another gear, and Bologna didn't have it. They had to learn it the hard way, right? Maybe another team that was in Europa League maybe would have been better off, right? Roma or Lazio, but his teams didn't perform this year, and it was hard. They had some tough draws, poor management, right? But it is what it is now. So at least it's got to build on it next year. I think there's a lot of good teams cannibalize each other. But yeah, it's tough. So we'll see. But I think the representation for next year, whether it's Inter, Napoli, Atalanta, I think will do well in Champions League. Napoli if Conte stays, all right, and then Juve or Bologna. I think between the two, I don't know, because again, who's the manager next year for Juventus? Is it Igor Tudor? If it's Igor Tudor, I say no, Juve are not going to do well in Champions League. If it's Bologna with Vincenzo Italiano, then yeah, right. Who knows? So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But I don't feel as affected by the coefficients as other people do. Do any of you guys feel the burden of this coefficient loss here with not making the top two and not getting that 5th Champions League spot? I personally don't. So it's still got 4, right? And we'll see what happens with if we get an extra team into Europa League next year with Fiorentina. We'll see. But yeah, I'm not as heartbroken about it overall. So. All right, gonna end this Serie segment with a talk about urban warfare, and what I'm talking about is the Rome Derby. Article from ESPN. This is about off the pitch stuff, not just on the pitch. On the pitch, saw 1-1 draw, but off the pitch there were some things going on. It says, the toll from clashes between violent fans and police of the weekend's Rome Derby includes 24 law enforcement officers injured, 7 arrests, and at least 40,000 euros in damaged garbage dumpsters. Officials in the capital were still trying to sum up the damage that their fans on Sunday attacked police in riot gear in a heavily populated area where people had been gathering ahead of the Serie A game between Lazio and Roma. I am disgusted, said the Rome mayor Roberto Gualtieri. It's unacceptable that hooligans transform a day of sport into a scene of urban warfare. Some 2,000 police officers were stationed at various flashpoints around the Stadio Olimpico and swept into action when Lazio's hardcore ultra fans attempted to push through a barred-off area. Laziale ultras acting off? No, that wouldn't happen, would it? Fans reacted to the intervention by launching fireworks and other objects at the police officers. Police then responded with tear gas and water cannons. Here's some of the pictures here of the Laziale. Serie A League judge Gerardo Mastrandrea on Tuesday announced that he would wait for a more comprehensive report about the clashes before deciding any punishment for the clubs. But he did order fines of 6,000 euros for Roma and 4,000 for Lazio because supporters of the clubs threw flares toward the field during the game. 7 flares were reported from the Roma end and 4 from Lazio end. The derby was restored at 8:45 p.m. kickoff this season after 6 years of earlier start times in order to avoid violence. Now next year's games will likely start earlier again. Lazio and Roma both expressed solidarity with the injured police officers and denounced the violence. The game ended 1-1. The derby was plagued with violence for years. In 2004, the derby was suspended due to a false rumor that police had killed a boy outside the stadium. In January, a car went up in flames outside the stadium before the season's first derby. Wow. All right. First of all, if I don't know how they won't have evidence of this, of the violence that went on, but you'll clearly be able to tell if it's Roma or Lazio based on the colors. Ultras tend to wear a lot of black, so that's very neutral for most teams. But you'll see the blue or the red or the orange, which will give it away, big giveaway, right? But I think if they have evidence, they need to go after the club. We've seen it many times where I don't necessarily agree with it, but the clubs have been punished for their fans, and you have to monitor your fans. And if you're afraid to go after your fans, if you don't control your fans, then they're gonna have to pay for it. The clubs have to pay for it. It's too many teams around the world with the behavior of the hooligans, the ultras of the fan bases, just are acting out of control. It makes it unsafe. many people just want to go there and have fun and watch a game, bring their families and stuff like that. And you can't do that when you got the ultras acting like they do, right? I'm sick of watching European nights, and then, you know, one team comes from outside the country and destroys the city. Like, it's unacceptable. So if they find out it's Laziale or Romanisti who were involved in this, find the club. And better be more than 6,000 and 4,000 euros respectively that the clubs face for the Flares. Maybe it means a match behind closed doors. I don't know. It sucks too because, like, the fans who didn't do anything, they got to pay for it too, right? But something has to happen, and they've tried to, you know, ban certain people from entering stadiums, but the ultras, they always find a way to get in, right? How many times have we seen where, like, a certain ultra leader gets banned because of something he did or said, but he still shows up at the game anyway, right? He just buys a ticket through somebody else and gets in no matter what. And they all know, they all have the insides, right? So I don't know. It's a never-ending thing, it seems like, I guess. So whatever. Anyway, I think on that note, it would be time to head on out for the night. That's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I want to do. All right. Well, I'm out. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream tonight, both Schalke and Serie. Enjoy the games this weekend. Schalke's tomorrow night. We're doing our podcast on Monday, and we're streaming back next Friday or Saturday, depending on how things go. But stay tuned on socials. You'll see when. So, all right. Have a good night, everyone. Enjoy the weekend.